Imagine hitchhiking through California in the spring of 1977. The sun is shining, the air is warm, and you're on your way to visit a friend. You're 20 years old, full of life, and trusting of strangers. Now imagine that trust leading to 7 years of unimaginable horror, locked in a coffin-like box, silenced, broken, and made to believe an invisible cult is watching your every move. This is the story of Colleen Stan, a case so disturbing, so unbelievable, it would later be called one of the most extreme examples of prolonged captivity in American history. A story not just of cruelty, but of psychological control and the incredible resilience of a woman who survived the unthinkable. On May 19, 1977, 20-year-old Colleen Stan was hitchhiking from her home in Eugene, Oregon, to a friend's home in Westwood, California, where she was going to attend a birthday party. Cameron Hooker kidnapped Stan after picking her up along Interstate 5 in Red Bluff, California. Stan stated that she was an experienced hitchhiker and earlier had declined 2 rides before accepting Hooker's. She reportedly felt confident climbing into the blue van because Hooker's wife, Janice, and their baby were in the car. When they stopped at a gas station along the way, Stan went to use the restroom. "A voice told me to run and jump out a window and never look back," she recalled. But she calmed her fears and went back to the car. Around 20 minutes into the ride, Cameron pulled off the highway, claiming to be interested in investigating some nearby caves. It was at this point, Stan said, that Janice got out of the car and went down to a lake with the baby. They were playing when Cameron got into the back seat and held a knife to my throat. He tied me up and placed a box over my head. She was subsequently locked in a wooden head box that was designed to prevent light, sound, and fresh air from entering. Before this, Cameron, then a lumber mill worker at Diamond International Lumber Mill, and Janice had reached an agreement that he could capture a slave to take Janice's place, because up until that time, Cameron had been using Janice to act out sexual bondage. There was to be no penetrative sex with Stan, according to the agreement, but this later changed. On the first night of her kidnapping, Stan was strung up by her hands, physically attacked by Cameron, and left blindfolded and suspended while the pair had sex below her. After her kidnapping, Stan stated that she was tortured and kept locked in a box 23 hours a day until she was given a contract and forced to sign herself into slavery for life in January 1978. In view from the box, propped up against her purse under the bed, was a photo of Marie Elizabeth Spanhake, a previous victim whose body was never found. She further stated that Cameron led her to believe that she was being watched by a large, powerful organization called the Company, which would painfully torture her and harm her family if she tried to escape. Stan subsequently became a slave, referred to as K, was forced to call Cameron master, and was not allowed to talk without permission. Cameron reportedly wanted Stan to be like the female character in the 1954 French erotic novel Story of O, and soon started sexually assaulting her orally. Cameron did not want to have vaginal sex with Stan because he considered that to be a breach of his agreement with his wife. Instead, he sexually assaulted her vaginally and anally with implements. Following this, the Hooker family moved to a mobile home in Red Bluff with Stan, where she was kept locked in wooden boxes under the couple's waterbed. In 1978, Janice gave birth to a second child on the waterbed above Stan. Stan said that her faith in God and belief in a chance of escape helped her survive. Her greatest fear, which Cameron reinforced daily, was of the Company. To avoid painful punishments, Stan tried to comply with his commandments, which later led to her being allowed to go out to jog, work in the yard, care for the family's children in the mobile home, and help him build bigger accommodations, including an underground dungeon, for more slaves. Even with an open door, neighbors, and a telephone, she made no attempt to escape as, according to Stan, her fear of the company kept her from seeking help. Additionally, Stan was allowed to visit her family by herself in 1981, but did not reveal her situation due to her fear of the possible consequences. Her family thought she was involved in a cult because of her homemade clothes, lack of money, and the absence of communications over the years. They did not want to pressure her, fearing she would stay away forever. The next day, Stan returned for a second visit, with Hooker posing as her boyfriend. At the trial, Stan explained that she was happy about visiting her family, who were therefore able to take a photograph of her and Cameron happily smiling together. According to Stan, Hooker feared he had given his slave too much freedom and took her back to his mobile home, where he locked her in the wooden box under his waterbed. She remained in the box 23 hours a day for the next 3 years. She dealt with bodily functions using a bedpan, which she positioned with her feet, and ate scraps of food. It was stated in court that Hooker's children were told Kay had gone home. However, once his children had gone to bed, Hooker would take Stan out of the box to feed and torture her. It was not until 1983 that Stan was reintroduced to the children and neighbors. She was also allowed to get a job as a maid at a motel. Hooker wanted Stan to become his second wife, which was a turning point for Janice. Janice confessed that, starting with their first date, she had also been tortured, brainwashed, and referred to as a whore over the years by Cameron. Janice further stated that she survived their relationship by engaging in denial and compartmentalization. By August 1984, Janice began struggling with herself and went to Stan to inform her that Hooker was not part of the company. However, she maintained that the organization did exist. In a televised interview for Girl in the Box, Stan told the interviewer that she then went to a bus station and phoned Hooker to inform him that she was leaving him and that he reacted by bursting into tears. Stan subsequently caught a bus home. In the months that followed, she did not contact the police, but continued to call Hooker regularly. She explained this at the trial by saying that she wanted to give Hooker, at Janice's request, a chance to reform. 3 months later, Janice reported her husband to the police. She informed Lieutenant Jerry Brown of the Red Bluff Police that Cameron had previously kidnapped, tortured, and murdered 19-year-old Marie Elizabeth Spanhake, who had disappeared on January 31, 1976, from Chico, California. According to Janice, Marie was walking home when she and Cameron picked her up before driving her to their home, where she was hung from her wrists in the basement, undressed, and tortured for an entire day. Spanhake was then shot in the stomach with a pellet gun and strangled by Cameron. The couple then wrapped Spanhake's body in blankets and buried her in a shallow grave near Lassen Volcanic National Park. Authorities were unable to locate any remains. Due to the lack of physical proof, no murder charge was brought. Chris Hatcher, a forensic psychologist and criminal profiler, testified for Cameron's prosecution at the start of the 1985 trial, and Janice testified against her husband in exchange for full immunity. In the end, Hooker was sentenced to consecutive prison terms totaling 104 years for sexual assaults, kidnapping, and using a knife in the process. Originally ineligible for parole until 2023, he had his hearing date moved up 7 years to 2015, through California's elderly parole program. On April 16, 2015, his request for parole was denied. Hooker will be eligible for another hearing in 2030. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, California officials contacted Stan and advised her that they were looking into possibly granting Hooker parole in March 2021. Instead of a parole hearing, Hooker was evaluated by a state hospital and was subsequently classified as a sexually violent predator. According to the Tehama County District Attorney's Office, Hooker was released on parole in 2021 to the Department of State Hospitals. After the trial, Stan studied for an accounting degree and, as reported by Mara Bovson in a March 9, 2014 New York Daily News article, tried to move on to a normal life, but misery followed her. A string of failed marriages and a troubled child, now in jail. Stan also joined and volunteered for Redding Women's Refuge Center, an organization that helps abused women. Janice reverted to her maiden name, Lashley, became a registered associate social worker, and has worked as a mental health professional. Stan has changed her last name. Both Janice and Stan continue to live in California. Colleen Stan's story is not just one of survival. It's a chilling reminder of how manipulation and fear can be just as imprisoning as any physical chains. Her resilience in the face of psychological torment is nothing short of extraordinary. Today, Colleen lives a quiet life, far removed from the horrors of her past. But the scars remain. Her case continues to be studied by criminologists, psychologists, and law enforcement as one of the most extreme examples of captivity and control ever recorded. In telling her story, we remember not only what she endured, but also the strength it takes to reclaim your life after living through hell. If you found this story as haunting as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more true crime deep dives. This is The Asylum, and until next time, stay curious and stay safe.